my lovely floss tube friends, welcome back to the channel. I know, where have I been? I can't even begin to tell you where I've been. So if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for coming back. And yeah, this video is definitely a Teresa video, so prepare yourselves. If you are new to the channel, then please excuse this video because this is not normally how my videos go, but this is how today's one's going because yeah, it's a floss tube video with very little stitching in it, but there is plenty of other stuff in this video for you, so please don't think, well, I don't know what we're hanging out for, because yeah, there's so much to talk about. Now, I will apologize in advance for the noise that you can hear in the background. It is hot for us here in the UK. We are rocking at 33, 34 degrees. It's been like it for almost what, five or 6 days now, and it's just too hot. It's too hot to be indoors. It doesn't seem to matter whether you keep the doors and windows shut. It's still, the heat is stifling. So I've succumbed to having a air conditioning unit running in the background. The fur babies are chilling, literally. They're just like, thank you, Mum. More about the fur baby saga as we go along in the video, because I had plans, people. I had so many plans for August. August was going to be the month. I'd already started my Christmas in July stitching in July, and I thought I was doing pretty well. And I'd sort of said, well, you know, these summer months, I'm not renowned for doing a lot of stitching anyway, but this August was supposed to have been different. You know, I was really into the stitching. I was enjoying the stitching, and I was like, I don't need to go into London for almost a whole month, basically 3.5 weeks. So I'm like, I am sure that with working from home and no bosses around, there will be time that I can do a spot of watering and whatever in the garden, and doing that before I start work and after I finish work, and still get stitching in. Yeah, that was the plan. But as usual, the plans turned into a saga. So what have I got today? So today there is some stitching, but it's negligible, people. It's negligible, but I will share it with you because I have done some. Proudly done some. We have some finishes as part of that stitching, which I know I'm very, very happy with that. But I did expect more. I'll be honest with you. I expected much more. What have I been doing instead of the stitching? In case you can't tell, there are some slight changes to the room. It's a bit of a, I didn't get any stitching done, but I did get a bit of craft, space, organizing, structure, and try and make it a bit more homey, because I always felt that this room was, although it's a multi-room, is the only way to describe this room. It is my office, but it is also my floss tube video room that I tend to do my videos from. It is also my craft room, so it's very much geared towards that, but it's also a spare room. The sofa behind me actually turns into a sofa bed, so therefore, yeah, you can't fill up any space in and around. You have to leave a big open space behind. But given that it's a multi-purpose room, and I needed to make it feel homey, but I also needed to make it suitable for all of the different tasks and crafts that I want to do in this space, I decided that if I wasn't going to get to do the stitching, I needed to do something equally creative and constructive. So that I will share with you as to where I've got to, and you know, we can have a little look in cupboards and we can get a little bit closer to what is the new area of the room. And of course there will be lots of life stuff thrown in along the way, because it wouldn't be a Teresa video without that. So where to start? I suppose we should start with the negligible amount of stitching, because that is predominantly what you're here to see. But But I will try and title this video so that it's, you know, you're not going to be coming onto this video going, oh, not much stitching, Teresa. Oh, but you did do something else. Yeah, I need to work the title out. I'm recording this video without any real thoughts for title. Now, bear with, people. It feels like forever since we last spoke. So I'm probably out of practice with how to do these videos. So if this turns into a whole rambly video, then I'm apologizing in advance. But if you're sitting there stitching and you just needed to sit and listen to someone in the background, then well, hey, my rambling shouldn't upset you too much. Back in July when we last spoke, I think I'd started some Christmas stitching. I'd finished my stocking, and I had all these plans, and yeah, big fat failure. Absolutely failed miserably. Now, I would love to sit here and tell you that it's just because, well, you know what it's like. It's Teresa, it's the summer. Basically, I spent my entire time out in the garden. I would love to sit here and tell you that. That isn't the case for once in my life. The garden has been neglected, the stitching has been neglected. But I did do some more Christmas stitching. And the last time we spoke, I don't know whether I'd actually mentioned them, but I was looking to start the 𝓗𝓸𴀀, she says, 𝓗𝓸𴀀 Christmas jumpers. Here they are. These are the ones that I was thinking, oh, well, I can get, you know, 4 red ones. And then I can do 4 blue ones. And hey, there's 2 couples sets of presents, right? That was how I had it in my head. Now, because on these jumpers and the fact that they were so good for couples, and I was mindful that, you know, it's the finishing thing, isn't it? It's the finishing thing. So this is what they look like as a set of, like, boys and girls, reds and blues. But what comes with this, which I really, really liked, was the fact that there is like a template for the jumper. What I didn't realise before I actually started it was that the template is based on how it is finished. And although you can do it on a different count of fabric, the suggested fabric was a 40 count Newcastle linen in the colourway light mocha. So because it does say on there that if you do it on a different count fabric, obviously the jumper will be slightly bigger. If you're going, you know, if, say for instance I wanted to stitch on a 32 count or a 28 count, the Christmas jumper was going to get bigger. And then I was sitting there thinking, but then I need to work out how to resize that template right there. I didn't want to faff around. And I've stitched on 40 count before, so I'm like, it's all good. It's all good. We'll go with the 40 count. We'll go with what was called for. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Now, I'll share this with you now, just because I started on the 40 count. I love the fabric at first. Don't you just love it when it goes like that? I love the fabric at first. Yeah. Started making a good section, done all of the outline, and then I don't know what happened, but somehow I'd gone wrong. And by the point I'd got to this, I was like, there's no saving this, I don't think. I don't think there's any saving it. So because there was no saving it, I was like, I'm just going to scrap this one and start again. In all fairness, when I realised how tiny this was and how testing it was on my eyes, what I should have done, if I'd have been wise, what I should have done was decided to stitch it on probably a 32 count or a 36 count, and then worried about, you know, the jumper template and how I was going to make it so that I could, you know, have the same shape template. Also, what I didn't realise until after I'd made my boo-boo, so there was sort of, there was a aha moment, but it didn't happen until I was thinking, this is so tough. I don't understand why I'm struggling so hard with this. And that is, let me see if I can get this to focus for you. Which way do we need to go? We need to go this way. There we go. if you look at the neckline here, let me see, how close can we get this before it blows out? I'm sitting here stitching this on a 40 count and didn't realise until the last minute, well, until after I'd stitched the first one, that I was actually stitching 2 strands. So when I was looking at the neckline, I was like, that looks really messy. It looks really, really messy. It only then dawned on me that in actual fact, I was stitching 2 strands instead of 1 strand on 40 count. When I was stitching the white area, which also went wrong, let me share, because it just would, wouldn't it? When I was stitching on the white area, you can see I'd changed it over to the single strand and was thinking, oh, that's so much better. But by then, we'd already gone wrong, and yeah, we decided that we'd start again. This time, I'm pleased to report that I didn't go wrong with the whole 2 strands versus 1 strand. So yeah, note to self for next time, read instructions twice before starting the first stitch. So I did then crack on, but that said, these took way longer than they should have done. Now, I need to refer to my notes over here, so please don't think, where's she looking? I'm actually looking at my notes over here just so that I can tell you exactly how many days these got stitched on. So I started my first one, which I picked the blue one, and basically decided to use the same one that I'd gone wrong with. So I started it on the 30th of July. So it got the 30th and the 31st of July. So it got 2 days in July. And then August, it got 9 days. Now, I know. I was looking at these jumpers and I was like, there is no way that this should take 11 days worth of stitching. And I decided to go with this one just here. I didn't think it looked that complicated. And in all fairness, it wasn't that complicated, but it took forever. It took forever. So I stitched that one. And then because it took so long to stitch it, when I got to the red ones, I was like, my heart is leaning towards this one. But I was like, I cannot bear another 12 days of this stitching. So I ended up going with this one, purely because I was thinking, well, it's only 2 colours. It shouldn't take so long. It didn't take quite as long, admittedly, but it wasn't as enjoyable. So the red one took me 6 days to stitch. So I did get 2 jumpers finished, and they're partially FFO'd, she says. Partially. They're sort of made, but sort of not. So here are the partial finishes. Now I need to do this so that it shows up. There we go. That's better. Oh, she says, there you go. You see all my shoddy workmanship there. So where are we? There we go. So I decided that to do the outline so that it matched the picture, she says, because I wanted it to look like that. I wanted the shape. I wanted it to look pretty. I was sitting there thinking to myself, well, how on earth am I going to get that design off of here onto the cardstock? Now, for those of you that have been on my channel before and have watched from way back, you'll know that I used to do quite a lot of paper crafting. I quite like paper crafting. I do lots of different things. So I then decided I would get my Cricut cutter out. I've got had a Cricut maker, and I would let the Cricut maker cut it out. And in all fairness, it would have done a fabulous job, apart from the fact that when I've actually gone to cut something, I realised that one of my rubbers had broke. I didn't know that I could get replacement rubbers, and given that I've got an engineer husband who could have found a way to put the new rubber on, I was like, oh no, that's no good. So I did nothing more than throw caution to the wind, and I bought myself the new Cricut maker 3, which is an all singing, all dancing. Absolutely love it. But it was only like about a day or so afterwards when I told my husband that I'd ordered a new one and it had arrived and I've got this new Cricut maker, and he was like, well, what did you need a new one for? What's wrong with the old one? And when I showed him, he was like, you idiot. He's like, I'm sure they must have replacements. Well, when I checked, Cricut don't actually supply you with the rubbers that you need, but you can buy other versions off of Amazon. So I said to him, well, you can get them off Amazon. I said, but I don't think they're like original parts, so I'm not sure how well they'd hold up, and I don't know whether you're supposed to try and dismantle the unit to fit the new rubber. So he turned around and said to me, well, look, order them. He said, I'm a mechanical electrical engineer. He said, I'm sure I can figure it out. So hubby is now waiting for the new rubbers to turn up, and he's going to try and fit the new rubbers onto the old Cricut maker, in the hope that I can sell it, basically, because he reckons that I've gone and bought an all singing, all dancing new one for no apparent reason. But I was like, I wanted a new one anyway. I like to have the newer one. My Cricut maker has always been fabulous, and the Cricut Maker 3 looks even more fabulous, and I have been playing with it, I confess. There's a little sign here, so I've done some acrylic engraving. It's not very clear in the background because that's sort of slightly fuzzy over there, but I've been playing, people, with the Cricut Maker. But also what I absolutely loved was that I let my Cricut Maker cut out, she says, get it in the right place, Teresa. I let it cut it out for me. And what I do is every time I create a template using my Cricut and I master it, I will write all the details on there, and I will keep this as my template. So you can see on there, I've put on there what my Cricut settings were, what cardstock I'm using. Now, a lot of times people say use mat board to do your finishes and to create the shapes. I didn't. And the only reason I didn't is because I ordered, for part of this new setup that I've got over here, I ordered the comic book backs, and I ordered 2 different types. So there's one that's slightly thinner, which is actually great for the fabrics, but there was one that was thicker that, believe it or not, was great for this. Now, the thickness of this meant that had I needed to, I could have cut it out with scissors. I'm not very good with a rotary cutter, certainly not with shapes. And normally with the normal mat board that I use, it's so thick, it's so hard to cut. This stuff isn't. So this one that I've actually made the ornament templates out of, and the actual what I'm using, is the comic backboard thick 40-point ultra guard, which is the thicker version of the comic back book. And then what I did was I worked out on my Cricut cutter what pressures I needed, what mat board I needed, and then I used a knife blade to cut out the template, and I thought it done a fabulous job. So needless to say, I didn't really have to cut anything out. The Cricut Maker 3 actually cut all of these out. So I was thinking I was going to have these done in a jiffy. And I was like, yay, just how we like it. So I did do a red one, a red backing for the red one, and a nice blue polka dot one. She says, if it comes into focus. Come on, focus. Polka dot one on the blue. Now, I know you can see a crease line there. I was obviously in a hurry because I completely forgot to iron the backing fabrics. So they both got lines in. That's fine because I've got a little Cricut mini press. I'll use that to just go over these and just try and press those out. I was thinking that I would have these whizzed up in no time. I'll be honest with you, people. This shape is not as easy as it looks to get the corners to wrap around. So the top was fine, the sides were fine, the bottom was fine, until I got to these corners, and then I was like, oh. And literally, I was struggling so badly just trying to do this with this backing fabric. So I was a little bit apprehensive, I'll be honest, when it came to actually trying to make the stitching replicate the same thing. So I wouldn't say it's a complete fail, because it's not. So here's the blue one. The blue one was the one that I went with first, and you can probably see what I can see. Pretty much most of it came out lovely, except, she says, this little corner here. There's just this little bit here that no matter how much I kept trying to tuck and cut, it just didn't sort of sit nice and flush the way I wanted it to. But that was number one. So we started with the blue one. So we made all the mistakes on the blue one. I'll be honest, I just glued it with Aleene's glue. So this is the red one. So the red one actually went much better. It was almost like the blue one came with its most problems, and I sort of figured out a lot of it when it comes to these ones. So this one actually sits quite flush. There's a slight bump, just an ever such a slight bump just there. But in all fairness, I was like, I don't think that's going to be too much of a big deal. My theory, she says, don't you just love a theory? My theory on this is, once I've got these actually glued together, because they're not actually glued together yet, they're still open. Once I've got these glued together, I'm going to make the cord-in. The only reason that these aren't FFO'd is because you all know that I use my floss drops here. What are they called? Pip and chip floss drops. And I have converted everything from bobbins to the floss drops. When I went to see if I had a full skein on my extras, I didn't have the colours that I wanted for my cord-in to be made in the 𝓗𝓪 way. So of course I'm going to follow the 𝓗𝓪 tutorial for the cord-in. I wanted it to match, so I've decided that on the red one, I'm going to use the red and the white to do the cord-in to go around. And for the blue one, oh, straggly. For the blue one, I'm going to use the dark blue and then the mid blue. So that colour just there that goes across where the bottom of the snowman is. So because I want to make the cord-in, obviously to make the cord-in, I need the DMC thread and I need a full skein. So I've had to order, and I'm like, I cannot wait for that to come in to be able to do this and then be able to video this, because time is against me. So we've gotten partially there. They are partially there, people. And as soon as I've actually got the DMC threads, which I will be getting next weekend because I'm off to the Essex Needles retreat, then I will finish them. And my thought is, she says, with the blue one, where there's that imperfection there, I'm rather hoping that once I get the cord-in round this corner here, I can put a pin in, which should just take that little bump out, so that imperfection should clear up. And if it doesn't, well, it doesn't. And that's that, because they're still a good enough gift to give away as a Christmas present. And I know what you're thinking. So when am I going to make the next two so that I've got the set of 4? Not this year. And if I did, I don't think I would do it on a 40 count, I'll be honest, because I really struggled. on the 40 count. Don't know why. Shouldn't have done, because I've stitched on 40 count. I've got other projects on 40 count, but yeah, these ones I just didn't. It wasn't going well. So I may still do some other designs. I mean, I could end up with four separate ones here. or 4 sets. And yeah, it won't be this year. Maybe next year I'll do another set, and I'll do them on a slightly bigger count, maybe a 36 count or a 32 count, and just have bigger jumpers. So we do have a finish. God, that was a very long way for me to tell you about my finishes, wasn't it? Although they're not FFO'd, but they are finished. So yeah, it's a work in progress still. I must admit, I am rather disappointed. I would have thought that for the entirety of August and the first 10 days of September, I would have expected more than 2 little ornaments to have been stitched. I would expect to have had them FFO'd. They're not. It is what it is, right? And I wouldn't mind, but I even sort of, because I was so sure that I was going to love stitching them and they were going to stitch up so fast, these are all the colours that are used for all of those different jumpers. That'll be going back into stash because it won't be being used for any more jumpers this year. The red one took me 6 days. So the red jumper I started on the 16th of August and I finished it in September. Yeah. Not very good. Not very good. So then I was thinking, well, I had a couple of days. By this time, I was going sort of heading back into London. So I was like, well, I need to do some more Christmas stuff because I don't want to get left behind for Christmas. I don't want to be racing for the deadline because I decided to give gifts as Christmas presents and they're not ready. So I decided to pull out my Annie B Folk Art Let's Go Sledging 12 sledge ornaments. Here they are. And I've decided that I need to do a minimum of 4 sledges. I have the wooden sledges in my finishing drawer at the ready. And I made a start on these, and again, I haven't really done a lot. I really haven't. How many days have my sledges had? So my sledges, the sledge got started on the 27th of August. I think they've had another 3 days in September. I know, it's shocking, isn't it? I have no excuses. Well, I do, and I'll share those with you shortly. But this is where I've got to. So we're nearly there with one of them. 3 down, 3 to go. And to be honest, this was much more bearable. This was what I call mindless stitching, which is great because right here, right now, that is exactly what I need. Now you're all sort of sitting there thinking, so why are you not getting any stitching? Is it because it's sunny and you're out in the garden? Is it because, no. Is it because you're busy working? Well, I am busy working, but it's the not when I'm working that's the problem. It's when I'm at home. So for those of you that follow me on Instagram and Facebook, you will know that back in July, we were saying that in August we'd booked Bonbons to go in and have her leg surgery. It was all scheduled. She was going to go in at the very beginning of August. In fact, I think she was going in the end of July. I think that was the original plan. The original plan was end of July she was going in. And unfortunately, I got a kidney infection, which basically was a nightmare for me for about 2 weeks. It took me a good 2 weeks to recover. So I had to cancel Bonbons surgery because I'm like, there's no way I can look after her if I'm in no fit state. So we postponed and we decided that we would book her in for the 3rd of August. Luckily, by the 3rd of August, I was better. The reason that we decided to go more towards the end of July was that by then all of my bosses at work would be on annual leave. I would be working from home. They'd already told us that we was looking at about a 6-week window of recovery before she was allowed to start going back to what they considered to be more normal life. So I was thinking, well, 4 of those weeks basically I will be working from home, which then only leaves Lauren with the 2 dogs, one that's sort of, well, you can see she's upside down in the crate there, in Alcatraz. So we're calling her 𝓚𝓚 𝓀. she basically has to be pretty much contained like this most of the time for the first 6 weeks. And we sort of knew that. I don't think we realised how hard it was actually going to be, but more about that in a minute. But we sort of knew that. So I was thinking, if I'm working from home for 4 weeks, Lauren only has to contend with it for 2 weeks before we can start heading back to normality, where she has them both on her own. The rest of the time I would be here, and if it meant Lauren had one of the dogs and I had the other dog, then yeah, and we could share and take turns. So we was thinking, this is easy, this is doable. So Bonbons went in for her first surgery on the 3rd of August. I have to be honest, when she first came out and they basically said no walking, not sort of like free walking, not even on a lead. No walking, no running, no jumping, no stairs, no steps. So basically what they said we needed to do was keep her in a crate or a confined area, such as a playpen. If she needed to go outside for a wee or to do her ablutions, you needed to pick her up, carry her out to the grass, put her on the grass, and then she was only allowed sort of 3 or 4 minutes to do her business, and then you had to pick her up and carry her back in and put her back into Alcatraz. So I was like, yeah, we can do that. It can't be that difficult. Oh wow, was it difficult. All the bending and picking her up and carrying her. You don't realise how much extra time that takes. Like, and silly things like, you know, make a cup of coffee and try and get my coffee upstairs to get ready for work, and get the dog upstairs because you had to carry her, but then you had to shut all the doors so that she couldn't go in the bedroom in case she tried to jump on the bed. There's only set places that she could be, so I had to put her under my dressing room table. You have to take the boxes. So we've got the Alcatraz crate here. In the living room we have got our playpen, our pop-up playpen, which is fine, but in the very early doors I think it was a bit too big because it gave her too much room to walk around. But the vets did say that was fine. And then upstairs we have another crate and a soft box in the dressing room. So literally there is a crate or a confinement area for Bonbons in every area. But the problem is, it's like although she's a small dog, she's a 𝓗𝓸𝔀 Charles Spaniel, she's not a handbag dog. So I can't stick her under one arm and have my coffee in the other and just, you know, walk around with her. You can't do that. So you have to have 2 hands to pick her up, because although she's small, she still weighs about 6.5 kilos. So she's not small, and she certainly doesn't fit under one arm. So everything was taking so much longer. What used to take me half an hour to get ready to work in the mornings, and I mean that's like bring the girls downstairs, let them go out for their morning business. I would make a cup of coffee or make the 2 coffees. The girls would come running back in. We'd go upstairs. I'd go in the dressing room, get ready for work, do my hair, do my makeup. Girls would come downstairs, do breakfast, and then I would come in here and start work. That is the routine. That is the normal routine when I work from home. It's slightly varied when I work in London, but not by much. The only difference is, instead of me coming in here, I disappear off out the door and the girls go find someone else to cuddle. Needless to say, that I used to be able to do that in around 30 minutes-ish. When she first came out from that first surgery, I didn't manage to get it in under an hour and a half, because all the requirement of me to sort of like carry her down the stairs, take her outside, keep her on the lead, stand out there and wait for her to do her business, bring her back in, put her in a playpen, make the coffee, try and get up the stairs. Now this is where the problem comes in. She doesn't like being left. She doesn't like being left in a room on her own, because Honey is following me wherever I go and she can't. Sometimes she got so upset she'd start to bounce up and down, which obviously she's not allowed to do. So I don't like to leave her to do the bouncing up and down. So they're trying to get a cup of coffee up the stairs really, really quickly, and then get back down before she starts bouncing and creating, and then pick her up, take her upstairs with me, put her in another box, get myself ready, then get her out of the box, bring her back down the stairs. You see how the saga's going on. All this before I've even done their breakfast. It was way harder than I anticipated it being, I'll be honest. But I was like, you know what? It's 6 weeks of our lives. You know, she's worth it all day long. So we get to two-week post-op. And by this point, they're saying that she's allowed a 2-minute walk up and down 3 times a day, plus going to the toilet. Other than that, but when they're saying she's allowed a 2-minute walk, it's a 2-minute walk on a lead. So all of this has to be done on lead. She's not allowed to be left free reigning. So we got 2 weeks in post-op. Then I noticed one day she went out in the garden, and throughout this 2 weeks, she was really lame on the leg, which I sort of expected. I'll be honest, I expected it because she just had a really big surgery. So, you know, I didn't think anything of it. I took her out in the garden so that she could do her business. And little girls, they pop a squat, as I call it. So they basically crouch down, but they move their legs out at the back. The fact that it was her back leg that they done the surgery on, she popped a squat and let out the most almighty yelp. And from that point onwards, her whole personality changed. She was sad, she was miserable, she didn't want to move, she didn't want you touching her leg. She was even more ginger on it than she'd been before. So, you know, like as a fur mummy, you're like, nah, something's not right. And then bearing in mind that all of a sudden she started yelping for no apparent reason, which she hadn't done in the 2 weeks that she'd been at home. So I ended up taking her back to the vets the next day. A vet checked her over. Well, he's pulling her leg. He's pushing her leg up. He's making her walk up and down on it. And he said, well, I can't really see anything wrong, in all fairness. So he said, I said, well, look, we've got an appointment in 2 days' time to see the consultant and do her post-op. So they said, well, maybe wait until Adele's back, because she's the consultant that done the surgery. She was the surgeon. Come back and see her. So poor Bonbons. And had I known this, I would never have done this. I brought her home and basically just followed the same protocol that we had been following. She was miserable. She was upset. She was not her little self, and I could tell. We had to wait another 2 days. And then I took her back in, and the vet sent her over the vet took her out the back to go and see the surgeon. And again, they've pulled her leg, they've pushed her leg. She didn't squeak. She didn't make any noise whatsoever, love her, because she's such a lovely little girl. They made her walk up and down on it, and they said, well, you know, in all fairness, Teresa, we're not concerned at this point. You know, she's doing really well. She is lame on the leg, but we sort of expect that post this surgery. We're quite happy with that. But they said, if you're not happy, and I went, well, it's not a case of me not being happy. I said, something changed. I said, there's something about whatever happened 3 or 4 days ago. I said that it was different. I said, she let me touch her leg. I said, she wasn't crying or yelping every time she went to move. So they turned around and said, well, you know, we don't think it's a problem. And if the pin's trying to migrate out, if the pin that they'd put in, so when they done the surgery, they'd sort of broke partially through the bone and put a pin through. And they said, if that pin's trying to push out, because there was like a bit on the side of her leg which was sticking out, which I'd said wasn't there before. They said, well, if that's the pin, we have to wait for the pin to migrate out further so that we can bend the pin back in, because they said we can't do anything until she gets to 6 weeks post-op, because the bone hasn't healed. It wouldn't have fused back. So they were saying all this, and then they sort of said, well, but if you wanted an x-ray, and I went, you know what, for my own peace of mind, I don't care how much it costs, just do another x-ray for me. I said, I've got a gut feeling that something's not right. I said, I know you're saying everything's fine. I said, can we do another x-ray? She was like, fine. You want another x-ray? We'll do another x-ray. And don't take this the wrong way. I am not happy about putting Bonbons under a sedation to have another x-ray without needing it. But you know when it's just, you know, something's not right. So they said, well, leave her with us for a few hours and we'll give you a call. I didn't even make it back on my driveway. But literally, as I was reversing onto the driveway, I got a phone call from the vets to say, Teresa, you was right. And they said, we have no idea how she's managed to do it, but she's broke her leg. I was like, well, I know her leg's broke. You broke it. And they're like, no, she's broke it again, but she's broke it further down. I did share pictures on Instagram and Facebook of the saga that was going on. So, you know, I'll put the pictures here for you, but you can clearly see that originally on her first surgery, they broke it down to a point. She then managed to break the bit at the bottom, which then makes it a floating part. The only thing that was holding it in situ was the pin at the top. But as they said, that hadn't healed. So it was literally a bit of a bone just flapping around. So that would explain why she was in so much pain. But even they turned around and said, we cannot believe she was even putting any weight through that leg. And all that, you know, that she let us do, all that pushing and pulling of the leg and making her walk on it. And I was like, she's a hardy little thing. And she's used to having a very poorly leg. She's had it since birth. So, yeah, I felt terrible. So, needless to say, they then took her back in and done emergency surgery. And they done a second surgery. And they said she's got very soft bones. We would have liked to have plated it and put a plate in, but there wasn't enough room. So, they put another pin in and they done a figure 8 of wire. Now, apparently, it looks really overkill on the x-ray. And it is rather overkill on the x-ray because, as they said, most of the time they wouldn't actually have that much metal work in a dog's leg of anything under a 25 kilo dog. I'm not sure what he meant, but basically a big dog. A big dog, they would normally do sort of that much metal work. So for such a small dog, it looks overkill, but it was the only thing that they could do. So needless to say, it basically took us back to day 0 all over again. Yeah. So it was like we just reset the clock. So we now are at, where are we? 3 weeks post-op? Yeah. No. Well, we're now 5 weeks post-op for the first surgery. And 3 weeks post-op for the second surgery. So, needless to say, 𝓗𝓚 is becoming very, very, very upset about being in 𝓗𝓚. And in all fairness, when she came out from that second surgery, I was expecting her to be worse than she was after the first surgery. She came out and she was walking so much better after the second surgery. Like way better than she was from the first surgery. So I said to my husband, I wonder whether it had a hairline crack in it or it had already fractured. And the only thing that was different the day that she popped a squat and cried out, I think it displaced. Because after the second surgery, she was walking around here without a limp. And she basically is almost limpless. She just sort of, you know, there's a slight limp, but it's ever so slight. So needless to say, we are treating her with kid gloves. We are being extra careful with her, much to her displeasure. Whereas before, I let her come and sit up on the chair with me. I'm not letting her do that very often because it frightens me. Because she thinks she's fine, she tries to throw herself off the chair. This is the reason that I've not managed to get any stitching done. Because I don't sit here and stitch. I sit in the living room and stitch. One, it's been ridiculously hot, but that's only been in the last sort of 6 or 7 days. Before that, it was perfectly fine to be sat in the living room. The problem that I had was every time I put Bonbons on the chair with me in her usual position, you had to have her lead wrapped around your hand, but you had to be on it with it like grasped in your hand, because as soon as Honey dashed off out the door, Bonbons would try to follow and she would literally try and throw herself off the chair. And I'm like, I cannot have that. But then every time I tried to sit on the chair and not put her on the chair with me, to sit and watch TV with the family or to sit and do some stitching, she would sit in the playpen and make noises and stare at me, giving me the whole guilt eye. And when that didn't work, she'd start jumping up and down, literally bouncing. And I'm like, no bouncing. So because of that, it's like if I had her on the chair with me, I needed to be fully aware of what she was doing and have the lead tightly wrapped around my hand. Now, I can't stitch I can't hold a 𝓗𝓚, I can't stitch with the frame over the top of me with her lead wrapped around my hand and actually have hold of it. So it was like every time I sat on the chair, I felt terrible for her, because it was like, I know I should be sitting there saying, well, I need some me time too, for my sanity. Because I'm not feeling very sane at the moment. Although I know I need all of those things, the problem was when you know that you've basically had a dog in Alcatraz like this for pretty much all of the day that you've been working, and she's only come out for wee breaks. You haven't really had time to pet her or to, you know, to cuddle her or to do anything to make her feel like she normally would, what is normal for her. Then when I eventually, you know, have dinner and sit down to do my stitching or to sit down and watch TV, I can't then neglect her and think, no, sorry, this is me time. You know, you just stay in Alcatraz for a bit longer. This is the reason that I've got nothing done. I put her on my bed a couple of times when I've gone off to bed, and I was thinking maybe I can stitch when she's laying on the bed, because it's not so easy for her to just run off. But that didn't work either. Having two dogs makes it so that, you know, one dog doesn't just sit and chill, because as soon as the other one moves, the other one wants to follow. So needless to say, it has been awful. And although we sort of knew what was coming, or so we thought we knew what was coming, I don't think we really realised how much of an impact on a family it actually makes when you've got this. And I mean, Darren basically was not here for most of it. He was either on night shift, or he was racing, or he was at the gym. Lauren, she streams at night, so she couldn't do anything in the night time. And through the daytime, we're both working. So again, the girls were just chilling in their crate. Well, Bonbons was in Alcatraz. Honey was just chilling and following all over. So yeah, this is the reason that I didn't get much done on the stitching side. What also didn't help, which just added insult to injury, so to speak, was that 8 days after her second surgery, 8 days, so literally a week after she had the second surgery, Bonbons went into season. So basically she started her period. And I was like, oh, really? Now obviously, normally I would put their frilly knickers on, but I couldn't put frilly knickers on her because it makes them walk like a baby does when it's got its nappy on. They sort of waddle. And obviously with the leg situation, I'm like, I can't put the nappy on her. And then obviously the only thing that I can do is lift her and carry her everywhere. So cause I have to pick her up when she's in season. So needless to say, that was an absolute nightmare. Absolute nightmare. Within 2 days of Bonbons coming into season, would you believe, Honey followed suit. So both of them were in season together, which is unheard of. They normally go about, there's normally about a week or 10-day gap between them. So Bonbons will go first, and then about a week or 10 days later, Honey would go into season. Honey obviously was feeling bad for her because Honey also went into season. So we now have two dogs, one that is basically the patient that you have to carry everywhere in season, and one that basically is just legging it around all over the house and feeling miserable and needy. And because it does, I mean, they get really needy and really cuddly and they feel sorry for themselves. So it was just like, really, girls? So then they're in season. We've got to about day 10 of them being in season, and then blow me, I have no idea what happened, but both of them got an upset tummy. And not just a bit of an upset tummy. They had 4 days of upset tummy, of which this all happened while my husband was on nights. I needed to be up and in London for most days. And one night, between the two of them, they had me up 9 times to take them downstairs. Because obviously Bonbons, you have to carry her. So not only is she in season, but she's got the raging squits. They're both in the same boat, so each time one woke one up, the other one needed to go out. They both went, and they're both, yeah, it was an absolute disaster. In the end, because of the situation and the fact that it was going on endlessly, I ended up with 2 towels. One black towel that I basically put under the sink of water, and one white towel that was the drying cloth. And every single time we came in, I had bonbons in my arm. I'm trying to stop Honey from going anywhere near the rug. I'm like, no, don't go there. And then, because then she's sort of sat on the floor. So literally, I'm having to clean bums, dry bums, clean myself because I am the one that's doing the carrying, and keep going up and down the stairs. Honestly, I thought I was made of stern stuff. The following day, after 9 times getting up in the night with the girls and having this ritual of bum cleaning and poo everywhere and just everything that went with it, Lauren got up in the morning to take over, and I said to her, I'm so sorry, this is the situation, and I have to leave you with this. Don't feed them. They need to be starved. And she was like, do you need a lift to the station, Mum? And I was like, no. And literally, I walked out my front door and I cried. I cried my entire walk to the bus because I was just like, what is happening? How can this be? It was awful, people. Absolutely disastrous. Awful. So, with all that said, you can see now why very little stitching has happened. Bonbons is still in Alcatraz, as you can see. We're starting to break her out a little bit more, so she's allowed to do like 3 and 4 minute walks. But when I say 3 or 4 minute walks, it's at lead. It's at a very slow pace, and she's just meandering around the house wherever I go to the next box or to the next playpen. But she's coping with it very well. Thankfully, the upset tummy got fixed. The Honey's still slightly in season. Bonbons is officially out of season, so she's much more happy. And then, of course, we're in the middle of a heat wave now, so yeah, it's just that they're just roasting to pieces. But Bonbons is on the road to recovery. Like I say, we're halfway. We're at 3 weeks. So my way of looking at it is another 3 weeks' time, she'll go back in. They'll do another X-ray to make sure that the breaks have healed. And once they know that that's happened, then they'll start giving us exercises to try and get Bonbons back to normality. And by then, I'm rather hoping that this whole need... I mean, I can understand that she shouldn't be allowed to do stairs or jumping, which is going to be hard to stop her from doing that, let me tell you. But I'm rather hoping that when we're indoors with her and the doors are shut and she can't go out in the garden, that we can at least let her off the lead and not keep confining her to the crates, and that she can, you know, it's a bit like at the moment, it's been so hot. Normally she will go and find her cool place, whatever she, you know, deems as the coolest place, you know, and 1 minute she'll be there, then she'll be over there, then she'll be over there. She hasn't even been able to do that because she's been confined to crates or the playpen, and she just sits there panting. So I was like, you know what, the aircon needs to break out. The girls need time. Honey's behind me. Let me see if I can move out of the way so I can show you Honey. So Honey's there, comfortable as ever. And Alcatraz girl Bonbons is over there, not looking quite so comfortable. But it is what it is, and yeah. Now you understand why things have been the way they've been. I would love to sit here and tell you that, you know, everything's going to change and, you know, I'm going to get lots of stitching done, but I don't think that's the case either, because we're not there yet, people. We're not there yet. It's just hopefully going to get easier. Now, because of all of that, and the whole, she won't let me sit down on the sofa. Every time I sat on the sofa, it was a saga. I was like, okay. But the one thing I did notice that she was fine with was all the time that I stood up and I was moving around in this room, or I was, you know, walking around or doing hoovering or cleaning in the kitchen, she didn't get upset by the fact that I wasn't with her. She was like, okay, Mum's busy, so I'll just sit here patiently until she's not so busy. So I thought to myself, well, if I can't do any stitching, I should at least try and do some sorting, because she lets me do sorting. She's letting me do tidying. Hence, The new look. The new look, people. This is the new look. I decided that it is time that I got organised. If Bonbons wasn't going to let me sit and do my stitching, then organisation was the next best thing. I was sick to death of not being able to find the things that I knew I had. Going and buying more stuff when in actual fact there was things that I could have used. And I was bored of the room. The room didn't look appealing. Either from an office perspective, from a spare room perspective, but mostly from a craft room perspective. I mean, the DMC floss, pip and chips have always been there, but these bins down here were, yeah. And the wardrobe over there, that was a disaster. Like literally, you opened that and you took your life in your own hands of what was going to hit you on the head, what would jump out, and what you wouldn't be able to find. There was so many things that I knew I had, and for the life of me, I couldn't find the things that I wanted. So I was like, do you know what? It's time that I did organise. And if I can't sit and do stitching, I will sort out my craft space. Now, I am predominantly a cross-stitcher. But you know as well as I do, because I just spoke about the Cricut. I do other things. So I do like paper crafts. The whole other wardrobe is all my paper craft. In fact, the paper craft stuff sort of actually expands out in other drawers and other areas. Now, I have not touched any of that yet. And in all fairness, I still haven't finished all of the stitching and the knitting side of stuff. So I decided that I wanted my fabrics to be out on display because the way that I had them was laid flat in a drawer. And I used to sort of look through them, but I couldn't really see them. I never really sort of had a good look at them. You didn't, or they were in the cellophane, so again, you don't get what I call the actual clear look of what the fabrics look like. And various other bits and pieces. My finishing fabrics, as example. The amount of times that I've finished something and thought, right, I need to go to the shops and go and get some finishing fabric without even looking at what I had. That's how bad it is. Then there was times that I'm like, I'm sure I had some bells to put on those, or I'm sure I had some twigs, or I had some whatevers, or some buttons. And for the life of me, no matter where I looked, I could never find what I was looking for, so I'd end up going out and buying more. So I decided that it was time to get organised, but I also wanted stuff that was accessible, easy to get to, and that I knew where everything was. Hence the pinboard. So as well as sort of the organising, you know what it's like when we've got our pretties, because I do call them pretties, you know, when you've got your fabrics on display and you've got, you know, your threads on display, you want other things on display. And because I love my garden, you know how much I love my roses and I love my flowers, I decided, you know, I want to make this space not just about the stitching, but how I like things, you know, the flowers and the things that I think pull a room together and bring it to life. So I've done a bit more crafting of flowers, which I will, you know, show you in my little craft space tour. But what I have also got, which basically gave me the idea of all the flowery type stuff in the room, because there's always something that triggers me to think, oh, I had never thought about flowers. What a great idea. I can have stitching and flowers. A company by the name of Roses Forever, it's a New York based company. They launched back in 2019. Reached out to me and asked me if I would be interested in having a look at their preserved roses. When I actually went onto their website and I had a look, they have got the most spectacular roses. You know how much I love my roses. I grow lots of roses in my garden. They are a pride and joy. Unfortunately, when you bring them indoors, they never last very long. These do. You don't have to do anything to them, which is great because they just look after themselves. So of course I was very, very interested. I decided to pick a set that would match the theme of this room. I will be purchasing some more. I think I rather like the idea of having some more upstairs in my dressing room, in my bedroom, and also in my living room, because I absolutely love them. They are made using natural oil to preserve the roses. All the materials that they use to cover the boxes is vegan, and they are allergy free. Roses Forever have offered me a discount code to share with you. Go and check out their website. I'll put the link to their website in my description box below. They have also kindly given us a $20 discount code, which I will also put in. They don't require watering or any type of treatment from you other than just look at them and enjoy them. And the fact that they make such a good statement, and I can mix and match them in amongst all of my finishy type stuff and my stitching, is just, yeah, love, love, love. So thank you ever so much, Roses Forever. I absolutely love my roses. So as I was doing all of this sorting and organizing and beautifying my room, so that if I'm going to have to sit in here all this time, I might as well have nice things to look at and nice things going on around me, I have done a small amount of footage on a video for you so that we could look inside the cabinets and the cupboards that I have done. Now, like I say, it's not completed. It is not finished by any stretch of the imagination. It's almost like I just made a little dent in it. Really, the only thing that I did actually attack and conquer to an extent was the wardrobe. With this extra space here, it has really opened things up. The other thing that I've done is also purchase myself a brand new Ikea unit, which is a game changer, I have to say. This is one of the Alex units that comes on casters, so it's on wheels. What I love about it is it has 6 drawers, much more storage. It's a nice wide one, but the game changer for me, if you're like me and you have a space where, you know, you need to be able to get a bed out or you need to be able to push it out the way, this is the baby. I have a table over on the other side of the room which houses my sewing machine and various other things. It's got a set of drawers next to it. I need to be able to access that if I'm going to use the sewing machine. So whatever I had couldn't be something fixed. So the beauty of this is I now have more space, and I can get the Cricut near the computer. And then when I'm done for the day, such as now, because I'm about to just finish up this video and show you what I've been doing, I will then move this on its wheels back underneath the table, and it pushes everything back out the way. I love it. I absolutely, yeah. You know, when it's just like, although I've not done any stitching and I feel like it's rather disastrous in that respect, I feel like I've achieved so much more by not doing the stitching. So on that note, people, like I said, I told you this would be a talking, waffling, rambling video. I was right, wasn't I? I wanted to share with you what I have managed to do as far as organising. Like I say, there's still a lot more to go, but I've made a big dent in the main bit, and now I can slowly work my way round the room and try and, you know, do a drawer at a time and get everything sorted. Because now that I started this organising and sorting, I'm like, do you know what, this is game changing, because I know where everything is now. So I'm going to share with you a little tour and walk around of the office. Okay, so a bit of an office tour, seeing as it's all been changed. So what actually started all of this was actually this unit here. This was the starting point, because to start with, all I wanted to do was get my fabrics out of the drawers so that I could actually see them. And I decided to go to Ikea and pick up one of these units. So it's not organised in colour order or count order as yet. It was more just getting it out of the drawer and putting it on things. So at the top here, I've got all of my Adas and easy guides. I thought I'd put those at the top. And then all of my even weaves and linens, I have gone ahead and put them on card, labelled them, sized them. Like I say, they still need organising into counts. I think I'm going to do mine in count and colour So probably at the top it will be sort of the easy guides and the aiders, because I don't tend to have many of those. Then it will probably be 25 counts and 28 counts, and try and sort of do some sort of colour coding down here. And then down here at the bottom will probably be an overspill of the 28 counts, and then probably more my higher counts, my linens, those sorts of things. But the game changer, which is what I wanted, was to be able to just look through, because when you look at them through the cellophane wrappers, you don't actually see the mottles. Like for instance this one, now that I've actually took it out of the cellophane, I'm like, it didn't look like that behind the cellophane. So you can see I've put who it was by, the colorway, whether it was even weave, what count it is, and what size I've got. What I have done, a lot of people just wrap and then just stick them in. I didn't like that because they kept sort of falling off. What I did do is get these clothes, I think they're called alligator clips, so that I can alligator clip them on, so that when I push them back in, they don't sort of want to come out. So I've done that on the smalls. Again, this one's a nimble thimble, colorway no idea, linen 32 count I think, and then the size. And again, I'm just using alligator clips to hold them on, but that way it didn't cause any more bulk. There was no other way for me to sort of work out how to do it. I've got some gorgeous colour linens and fabrics that I didn't even know I had. I've got my little sign here. This is where I've been playing with my Cricut maker. So I've done some engraving on acrylic and made my own little sign. I've been playing, people. I've been playing. All of this decorating as yeah, it's made for some fun. I mean, look at this colour. Look at that. I've got some gorgeous colours in here, some lovely peaches. Again, you know when you're sort of sitting there thinking of something summery. Perfect. That looks like a sunset here in the UK. But yeah, so that is the fabrics. Like I say, still needs sorting. Still needs a little bit of playing with. And this is just a unit from Ikea. I think it's called an 𝓚 unit. And then it sort of progressed from there, and that's when the pin board came to life. I saw this in Ikea and I was just like, what a great idea. Maybe I need one of those. So yeah, of course, when I said I needed one of those, I decided I did really need some of those. As well as up until a week ago, we were sort of heading into fall. We wasn't having particularly good weather, so I went and got myself some fall type decorations, only to find that we were now in sort of a mini heat wave. And I quite like the idea of some flowers. As you know, this was sort of the inspiration for the flowers, was the Forever Roses. But I sort of went a step further because I saw something on Pinterest and was like, I like that. So I made my own stitch word with fillable letters, filled them with flowers. There you go, get a bit closer. Filled them with flowers, and I painted them with chalk paint in like a nice grey to match the room. Filled them with flowers, and then hubby put them up, and they're just up there on sticky back Velcro, believe it or not. That does the job. So the idea of this was not only to make it look pretty, so that it was something interesting for me to look at, but also usable. So for me, it's sort of, you know, my go-tos. So all of my rotary cutters, my scissors, my twine, my clips. I use the bobbies for when I'm using my full coverage. They tame the threads. We've got some little plants on the top. This is for my little, you know, like when your needle gets stuck. I've got a little tape measure there. Tiny little bits and pieces in that one. All of my twines and bits and pieces in there. Again, easy to get to, easy to see now, so that I know what I've got. I did get this really lovely little sign just for decoration. And then I was thinking, do you know what? It's better if I have my ribbons out. So I've got my festive ribbons out, ready for Christmas. So I've got my ginghams, I've got my reds, my greens, my golds. But then over here, I have my pastels. Some of these haven't even been used. That's how long they have sat in a drawer, because I completely forgot they were there. And I was just like, why are they in a drawer? Because they're too gorgeous to be in a drawer. So they are now hanging on here. I've got a finishing hoop, which I've never used because, again, I completely forgot it was there. What have we got here? So up here, I've got my different types of pins. So I've got the little ballpoint pins. I've got some longer sequin pins, and yeah, some standard pins. So they're up there. This is going to be for my little rings. I've got some extra rings that I've ordered for when I go to the Essex Needles retreat this weekend. I've got a few more packs of those because I'm going through them like nobody's business, as you can see, because there's only one there. I had a load of little buttons, very pretty buttons. Apples, hearts, ladybirds. Yeah, completely forgot I had them. So I pulled those out and I've put them in there. I'm starting to think I need to join a button club or something. Over here we've got some trim. We've got some of the ruler trim, as well as some reds and blue called in. Over here we've got, this is ideal because they're made of metal. So my some of my very pretty Agnes needle minders sit on there, so rather like that. And then this is where I keep all of my scissors. So I've got different types of scissors in here, so that way I know exactly where they are. Down here we've got some fobs, so all of the fobs that I've been gifted to go on my rings, so they're hanging there so that I know I can just grab one when I want one. Down here I've got some books. I ordered, do you remember this? My Stitching Time notebook. I've also got a very summery type flowery notebook with flamingo on it. Love, love, love. Handy little thing to have. Eventually I'd like to think that I'll have some charts at the ready. This is that happy hoopla framing tutorial. This is what that hoop's for. So I thought, well, I'll keep the instructions so that I know how to use it. And then further along here, we've got a little bit more foliage, people. Some more buttons, a whole box of buttons. This little beauty, I have to share, is my pin keep that Caroline Mazzio made for me years ago. Look at that with the T on the front. It's so beautiful. And it's been so nice that I refused to use it. But I thought, well, if I'm not going to actually use it as a pin keep, or like as a pin cushion, then it should at least be on display, because it is absolutely gorgeous. And yeah, that was a total surprise from Caroline one day. What else have we got? So we've been up there in these jars here. We have got, you know, the buttons that you make with your own fabric. So I've got a whole button set up there so that I can make little cushions with coordinated buttons. I've never used them because I completely forgot I had them. And then in here we've got Christmassy bells that I bought. Again, haven't used them. And in here I've got some wooden Christmassy embellishments that I use for like my little sledges that I do. Up here we've got some more bits and pieces, a bit bumblebee and spring type theme. A little wooden spool, again completely forgot that I had it. There's some sort of glue on Christmassy little mini pine cones. I love these little jars. I really have never thought about putting things in jars. There's a few more beady buttons in there. They're my sparkly ones. As you can see, there's only one set in there. Need to do some purchasing, I think. But yeah, so, and then because I thought we was going festive, she said, with the autumnal feel that was going on, I bought myself some pumpkins, little fabric pumpkins. Got these from Hobbycraft. Cutesy, very cutesy little things. And then obviously I've got my little gnomes. Love, love, love. Of course, here we have the 𝓗𝓸𴀀 box with all my bits and pieces in, and I've got my table stand, so that's there, easy to get to. And then what I also did is I actually used this space to hang up some of my lovely threads. So these are my pearl cottons that I used for my Christmas stocking. And because these get hidden away and I always forget about them, I have got not a full amount of the Classic Colourworks, but I have got, as you can see, quite a good selection of them. But because they're in a drawer out the way and I don't actually go to them or look at them, I don't use them. So I've pulled those out in the hope that that will inspire me to use them more. Again, a bit more foliage. Down here in these first sets of drawers are my DMC. I haven't completed and put every single one in. As you can see, there's still some blanks. I've got not a whole drawer full, but a substantial amount of threads still to be unbobbinated and come onto here, and then I can look at my full skeins. So all 4 drawers there are for my full set of DMC using the Pip and Chip floss drops. Love, 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 love. Then down here, these were the old fabric drawers, which had all sorts of 𝓘𝓚 in. And to be honest, some of them are still a bit 𝓘𝓚fied because I haven't found homes for everything. What I am going to do is use my Cricut maker, and I'm going to put the vinyl on, like the fabric vinyl, and I'm going to name them once I've designated exactly which one is going to be for what. So currently at the moment, this one is my knitting one. So it's got my very dodgy scarf in there. It's got my socks in there that I haven't finished, and I've also got some new wool for a new project because someone's promised me, you know who you are, Mary, that she's going to show me how to crochet, and I'm rather hoping I can crochet a little daisy blanket. So I need to remember to take that to the Essex Needles retreat. This is this basically is another multi-craft drawer. So this has got sort of my paints in, it's got sequins in, it's got glues in, it's got a few dyes in, it's got some transfer papers in there, we've got some spray adhesive stick away, yeah, we've got some polishing gilding waxes. So yeah, this is like another drawer of 𝓘𝓚 that still hasn't been sorted out, so that's a work in progress. And then in this one, this is absolutely a tip drawer. I've got a ring light in there, I've got, I don't know, an old calendar in there, I've got the old filing system that I used to use for my dies, we've got some special boxes, we've got, yeah, another 𝓘𝓚 drawer. That's what we've got there. Again, still needs sorting out. Down here, this is projects that I have fully kitted and that have full intentions of stitching, but it's also got in here a few of the projects that I started and didn't finish. So yeah, I need to go through this because there are some projects in here that I think are like UFOs, and some projects in here that I have every intention of picking up next and stitching, but I need to stitch something to be able to do that. So that is how all of this started, this wall here. So then I thought I needed to do something with the wardrobe, because the wardrobe, I took my life in my own hands. Literally, you'd open the door and you'd fear for your life of what was going to fall out at you. So up at the very top, that is my bags for when I go off to my retreats, and also my sewing machine extra stand for my extra long projects. In this box here, or this bag here, this is more knitting stuff. Again, more knitting stuff. Really, I should have put all the knitting stuff together, but this is, yeah, this is a space that I'm still sort of undecided on what to do. This section here are my unused project bags. So this is sort of bags that are ready for more projects. And also my project wallets, because I'm using one at the moment for my smalls that I'm taking into London with me. Talking of London, I'm there tomorrow. So project bags. Down under here we have got, so this is all of my full coverage bobbinated pieces, as well as I've got the remainder of the kit for the Owl Forest embroidery cherry which I haven't picked up at all. Bad Teresa. This is my alternative reality, and then as you can see, this is my one and only seasonal stitch thing that I put away ready for winter. That's rather lame, isn't it? And then underneath there, this is where I sort of, you know, this has sort of like really changed how I'm thinking about the stuff that I've got. Normally if I do a finish and I finish something, because this was all in different cupboards and different drawers and different places, I didn't even know most of it existed. So half the times that I've gone out and I've purchased more fabric, I didn't really need to, because I have enough. There's a lot of stuff in here that I could have used. So these are all the fabrics. I've tried to fold them so that they sort of all tuck into each other, so that they're nice and tidy. Because they're all different sizes, it's not as good as it looks when you watch these YouTube videos where you've got quilters that everything's tucked and folded perfectly, but it does for me. They're just not unraveling, and it's not just a drawer of mess. So I've tried to do this in colour order. So these are more like my blacks, my greys, my neutrals, the blues, the greens, the browns, the yellows, and then this is my pinks, into my reds, into my purples. At the very front here, this is all my felts. So this is all felt here. This is my scraps and my squares, where they're like tiny little charm sizes. And then here we have all of the neutrals and the hessians and those types of fabrics. So yeah, I'm super happy because I can see everything this way. I'm loving how that's turned out. Who would have thought that a bit of organisation would make me feel so good about my stash? In here, this is my offcuts of linen and even weave that I've put in there for really tiny smalls. What else have we got? My floss away bags, because I don't actually use those. This is my pearl cottons that aren't hanging, the little spoolie ones. So I thought I'd put those in here for now. This is another pearl cotton. So this is basically where I'm leaving my pearl cottons. In this here, I've got all of my petite treasure braids. Is it petite treasure braid? Yes. It's also got my whisper threads in there. So they're all in a tin together. 9 times out of 10, I don't actually need to buy any more of those. Also, what I've got in here, which I don't think I spoke about on my video, is my family farm Afghan. Here it is. And I'm supposed to be having a new start with that this weekend at the Essex Needles retreat. I've got all of my threads at the ready. I haven't put them on their floss drops yet. So there's all the gorgeous colours. And the Afghan is in the project bag, all ready to go. So I must remember to take that this weekend, because that's a new start. So that is in there. Underneath here, this is basically a finishing drawer. So it's got all of my finishing accessories. So I've got my sleighs, I've got my little boxes, I've got some wooden twigs, I've got some berries. Yeah, I've got my glues. I bought this ages ago in the hope that I would do some sort of finish with a spring wreath. Again, completely forgot I had it. I've got a round circle, I've got another wreath, I've got a polystyrene wreath. Yeah. And then over here, I bought these about 4 years ago. thinking that I would do a Christmas theme and then hang something off of it. Look how cute these are, and I've just not used them. So yeah, the fact that I've actually found all these things, there's more of those. Look. Just goes to show what you can find when you actually look through what you've got. And then right down the bottom, this is where I'm keeping all of my wadding. That's my fibre fill in there. I've stuffed that full. My wadding, more wadding, and then in this box is my interfacing. So I have plenty. I should never need any wadding, stuffing or interfacing for a while. So that is basically the wardrobe. Look how nice and clean that looks. I'm so impressed with myself for doing that. And then down here is where I am keeping all of my projects that are on the frames, so they have a little place to sit. And then on the other side of the room, excuse the aircon unit to the right, this is the Ikea units I was talking about. So this is like a desk, and then this is the unit that's on the casters that comes out. This is the Alex, and obviously the unit next to it is Alex, and I've got a unit which my DMCs were in, which are also Alex. So in the top drawer, this is all my 𝓘𝓚. This is where I keep those. And this is, at the moment, it's not completely sorted out. This is my Cricut stuff, so all my Cricut vinyls, all my transfer sheets. We've got some masking tape, quilting ruler. Again, more Cricut stuff, some of the tools, some pens, more vinyl, some templates and blanks from previous projects. In this drawer, I have got all of my small scroll bars and all of my stretcher bars in there, Omniques and needle needs. In this drawer we have, so I've got my light, I've got a glass unit for when I'm doing things that's a bit messy. Also in here is all of my finishing boards and foam core for the finishing stuff. And down here we have, these are the backing boards, so these are the comic book backing boards. This is the one that I'm using to do my finishing on, so 40 point. And as far as I'm concerned, if that's a bit too flimsy for whatever I'm actually doing, then I can double them up. But they're easy to cut, and my Cricut does all the cutting for me, so it saves me doing it. And then these are the ones that I am using for my fabrics, the boards that I'm wrapping the fabrics around. Also in here I've got a paper trimmer and a guillotine and some white printable stickers. Love, love, love. Love, love, love. Over here in this drawer, this is where I used to keep my DMC, and decided that all of my other types of threads, it would be a good idea to put them in here. I think it sort of works, but it sort of doesn't. I'm still trying to think of what to do, but for now it gives them all a home. This is all my silks for you. I've got my 𝓵𝓏ᴍ silks here. All my part used 𝓵𝓏ᴍs in the floss away bags. We've got, what are those? Silk mill silks. Yeah. And then I've got some needlepoint silks. So that's pretty much what's in those drawers. This drawer here has got all of my remaining skeins of DMC that are sort of in number order, and of course my floss drop measurer from, I think it's Stacey Stitches. But yeah, like I say, it's pretty much a work in progress, but I've made a good start. So I'm happy enough with how things are going. I'm super happy with this side of the room because it's the only side of the room that actually looks like it's finished, but it's a work in progress. Needless to say, the poochies are happy enough. We have the big sofa at last, so I've had to move the cushion out of the way because Honey doesn't like that when it falls on her. So she's quite happy sitting up there. Bonbons is attached to a lead. You can see the lead hanging off of her because she kept making a lot of noise because she didn't want to be in Alcatraz. So at the moment, while she's behaving herself, I'm allowing her to sleep there. This is her little leg. I don't think it looks too bad. It's okay, Mummy's just looking. So she's still rocking the interesting hairdo where she's sort of, they've shaved half of her bum and half of her leg. She just wants Mummy to cuddle her. She's very cuddly at the moment, but as you can see, the scar is healing up nicely. It's a work in progress, baby, isn't it? It's a work in progress. Yes, I know. You like it when Mummy touches you. She's missing her cuddles, people. She's missing her cuddles. So on that note, you just can't take these too seriously. Let's move your fur out your way, shall we, baby? There's my pretty girl. Oh, hello. We've got one that's now upside down. Hello, upside down girl. On that note, my lovelies, I think it's time that I go and give these babies my attention. I'm sorry about the rambling of this video, but I wanted to share that I have done something with my time. Just not necessarily what I was hoping to have achieved, hey bonbons? You're worth it. You are worth all this. So right, back to the video, people. Say bye-bye, bonbons. Say bye-bye, honey bear. Plans coming up are going to be almost nothing, I'll be honest. There's no point in me planning, and the reason that I say that is I've got the Essex Needles Retreat, which is taking place next weekend. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm off at that. I come home on Sunday, I pack another bag, and I go to an LT offsite with work for the Monday through to the Thursday. So not anything is going to happen there because I'm away with work. I come home on the Thursday, I have the Friday to unpack that suitcase, repack another suitcase, and on the Saturday I fly off on holiday with my husband for my birthday for a week in Egypt. Yeah, so of course being away on holiday, lots and lots of heat and lots of dinners and lots of drinking and just enjoying ourselves and relaxing, there's not much stitching going to happen that week either. So I think we can pretty much write off September. And I'm rather hoping that by the time we get to October, we will have very, very good news about Alcatraz Kid here. That she'll be free. Or not free, but freer. And by her being freer, maybe I'll be freer from all of the other things. Work has been super busy. Like I say, LT offsites, organising. Around the mid-October time, I think my boss basically is phasing out completely, which means I'm down to one boss, which will be glorious. It will be glorious to just have to look after one person. That should make the days a little less stressful, therefore making it so that I'm not so tired when I get home from work to be able to do some stitching. But I am rather hoping that by the time we get to the second half of October, most of the stuff that has been keeping me from all the things that I love to do will disappear, and the autumnal weather can hit me as hard as it likes, because my plan is to enjoy the cold weather, the doors are shut, curled up on the sofa with my stitching and my very organised craft room. And you never know, I might get back to my live streams, and I might get back to recording more regularly, and I might get back to stitch with me's. Yeah, that would be lovely. But like I say, my life isn't as I want it right now. It's been challenging, but hey, we are making small, tiny progress, people. So I hope you are all well. I hope you've enjoyed listening to me waffle about all of these things and the dramas of Teresa's life and the reason why I've been missing in action as usual. I hope you all have a wonderful September and that you get more stitching than I do, because mine, yeah. Normally it's the summer months that keep me from stitching, and there's no excuse this time. So until next time, people, take care. I look forward to talking to you again soon, hopefully in October. Bye bye for now.